My guest on this week's episode of Suds Search is Duane Brown, founder and head marketer at Take Some Risk. Duane started Take Some Risk in January of 2017. In a short period of time, they have developed an impressive roster of clients including Birdies, Unbounce, and Woocommerce. Duane is a paid media expert who worked internationally for years before starting his own agency. His journey from vagabond digital marketer to agency owner during a lockdown was definitely something I wanted to discuss with him. Duane is an in-demand conference speaker who has presented all over the world. A short list of conferences he's spoken at includes Brighton, Inbound, SMX, and SEERfest. Duane is also an accomplished writer. What I really like are his long-form guides to lesser-used advertising channels like Snap Ads and TikTok. I'll spend a lot of our conversation talking about his guides and how marketers can use these channels more effectively. Grab a beer and join me for a conversation with Duane Brown. We'll discuss the value of advertising on smaller channels like TikTok and Snap, Google's update to their search terms report, and why he decided to fire all his clients in August of 2017. Duane Brown, welcome to Suds Search. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's the Friday before Labor Day here in the States, and so you're starting my long weekend, and really excited to talk to you about a number of topics in paid media, I guess is the best way to talk about it. One of the things that I got to start with is, how did you come up with the name for your agency? I thought it was so hard to name my agency, and I ultimately just named it after what I do and the breed of my dog. And so that's how we got Search Lab. But you have a cool name. How did you guys come up with this name?
Thank you. Yeah, it was, I wanted a name that kind of exemplified who I was as a person. I'd moved to Australia and got a job and didn't know anyone doing what we do. So, paid search for a big tech company. I wasn't sure if that was luck or scale. So I moved to the UK without knowing anybody and got a job at a few different agencies and a startup before we got bought. And so I wanted something that was like, normally you'd say like take a risk would be grammatically correct, but like in life, you take like lots of risks to get ahead. You can't just take like one risk unless you like make $1 billion and retire. So take some risks just made more sense, even though it's not grammatically correct. And I often tell clients, it's kind of like if you went skydiving. I don't want you to grab my hand, jump out of the plane, take that risk, and hopefully it all works out. And so it's all about like what we do with clients and what I think about life. And I know that I can't just rest on my laurels. I just got to like keep on getting ahead.
I love it. And I think you guys are doing some very interesting things. There's this idea when I hear paid search or paid media, to immediately think of Google and maybe Facebook and Instagram. But you're really knowledgeable and talk a lot about platform diversification. What does that mean for you? What is that all about?
Yeah, that means not putting all your eggs in one basket. Bless the hearts of people who work at Google. They've given me a job for 14 years and, I don't love Facebook, but it's where people spend their time and it's where clients see success. But I don't want to put all our eggs in those two baskets. Even this week, Google's made some announcements that have been less than satisfactory to people who do paid search. And, Facebook seems to only get worse day by day. So always thinking about, where else can we spend clients' money profitably or break even if that's the goal and still acquire the customers we want. So Snapchat, Snap Ads, whatever you want to call it, has been really popular the last couple of years. And we run ads for, FTD Pull Flowers and Birdies, which is a D2C brand. And so we like Snap because it's very similar to Facebook and being very direct response. You can show someone an ad and get a conversion for a sale, an app install. And so to us, it's all about where else can we advertise that makes sense to get more customers, because it's not about just being on Facebook or just being on Google. It's about being the places your customers are. If your customers are on a forum that looks like it's from 1999, then I'll advertise on that forum, even if it looks like it's from 1999, because that's where my customers are. And too many brands we take on are just like, we do Facebook or we do Google. And I'm like, well, what happens when that breaks? Like a client actually this week, they can't get any data in their Facebook account from August 22nd. Like a bug wiped it out and Facebook doesn't know why. And so we've turned off the ads and like, that was 90% of their spend. It was 100% of their spend when we came on board. We shifted some money over to Google, but now we've got to shift all the money over to Google because they can't advertise without knowing what ads are going to work, what ads are not working.
That's a great example of why you'd want to be diversified. So I love this idea. I've seen a presentation you gave on Pinterest ads. You guys have this fantastic guide to Snap ads that I'm going to dig into in a little bit. I think one of the one of the questions I always start with is, how do you make these decisions? Because there isn't an infinite, like a bottomless pit of money. There is you have a client, they have a specific budget that they can come up with. How do you decide where to allocate it, and how do those decisions, whether it's going to be Snapchat or Pinterest or Google and Facebook, how do those decisions get made?
Most of our clients already come to us on a platform or on two platforms. And so usually it's like, what's working, what's not working, what do we tweak, what can we change, where can we shift money around? And so we sort of, tidy up accounts, if you will. And then from there, it's, where do people actually spend their time online? People do still use Instagram and Facebook, but maybe we don't use it as much as we used to. And so if we're not using it as much as we used to, where are we spending our time? So if that's on, for most people, let's say under 40, that's like TikTok and that Snap. Well, then how do we advertise on the platforms? Both, TikTok's got a great algorithm to show people an ad theoretically. Snap has relationships with both DataLogic and Nielsen, so big data companies where they have an audience list of people. And so if you do lots of interest targeted on Facebook, maybe Snap makes sense for you because your customers aren't just people 18 to 24, which is what everyone thinks is on Snap. There are people above 30. I'm above 30, almost 40 in a couple more years. There's lots of people above 40. Will Smith is on Snap. He's got a TV show. So Snap isn't just for teenagers or people in their early 20s. There's lots of people who have really good income. We have a dirt bike line on there. People spend a couple $100 on like just one part for a dirt bike, and a dirt bike costs, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. So it's really just to figure out like, what are they doing right now? Tie up some loose ends, and then where else can we spend money potentially just to diversify? And it's definitely more of a science than an art. There's not like a formula we have, because there is no formula, but it's just like, where do we know the customers are? Where do we think the customers are? Our client didn't think that they would have people who would want to buy mountain bike stuff on Snap, but we proved them wrong over the last couple of months. And we spend about $5,000 a month there, which isn't a lot, but it's more money than we were spending 2 months ago. And it's definitely gonna be tons more money once we get to Christmas.
That's really interesting. So, I guess I want to dive into this Snapchat study that you did. One of the things that I think was really important is that Snapchat, the ads you mentioned in your study, there's a lot of good tips for creative and how to do this. And one of the things is it's inherently a mobile platform, so the ads are got to be good on a mobile device. Could you give some examples of how you might come up with an ad campaign that is really, really targeted for a mobile user?
Totally. I mean, depending on if it's, a brand ad or a product specific ad, we think about putting the product front and center. You don't have a lot of time to get someone's attention. So in the first 2 or 3 seconds, you want to have the product front and center. And then, what's your value prop? What's your USP? Whether it's, free shipping, great customer service, maybe, being in Canada, sometimes there are color versions of products that only are sold in America or in the UK. So sometimes I'll buy a product from America or the UK because I can't get that color in Canada. If that's a USP potentially, you want to put in an ad, they want to put it in an ad. And so generally for Snap, we try to put the product front and center and then make engage an ad that people want to like stop in their tracks and watch. We've all gotten bad ads, but to get an ad that's like, wow, this ad is like very colorful, or there's like a famous person in it, or this person just did like a really cool trip. Like our mountain bike client actually rides mountain bikes. That's just everyone on the team.
Okay.
So they're always filming videos, and I'm like, this is stuff that would make great content, not just for the YouTube channel, but also for an ad. So it's like, let's recut this and turn it into an ad because it's going to get someone's attention who does this. So it's just about making an engaging ad, which is really hard and a bit vague. But everybody knows a good ad when they see one because it makes you stop in your tracks and like watch it or read it.
I love it. And there's this idea of swiping up that you bring up a couple times in the guide. Is that really the objective? So you have an ad, and then one of the things you say is to encourage this. So if you want people to swipe up, you should really say that somewhere in your ad as well. What is the nature of swiping up, and why is that so important in Snap?
Yeah, swipe up is like a click on Facebook or on Google,
Right.
so it's the same thing. So you want someone to swipe up so they'll go to your website or potentially download your app or download a piece of content. That's generally your goal if you're going to drive, sales, but it doesn't have to be your goal. Your goal could be if you have like a lens, which is like augmented reality, or you have like an overlay, which is basically like, what's the word I always use in my presentations? basically like a cover on an image. Like if you have an overlay or a lens, then your goal might be to get people to share that with their friends, because overlay lenses are usually attached to a brand or a company if they've made it, and people share, that gets their brand out there. So you don't need to get a click or a swipe up. You could want to get a share. If you're Will Smith, you probably just want to get people like watching your TV show. So shareability is really important. But obviously, if the goal is to purchase, then yeah, you want to get a swipe up so you can get people on your website and then, remarket to them when they're on Snap.
I love it. And then the other thing I learned from you was this audience matching. So there's this audience type in Snap called SAM. Am I saying that right? Or is it SAM? It's SAM?
You can say Sam. I say Sam.
Okay. And this was really interesting to me because I'll let you describe it a little bit better for our audience, but basically you take your existing customer data, you give it to Snap with this huge amount of data that you mentioned earlier. They're able to match. It's almost like a lookalike audience, but you provide the initial seed data. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's correct. So it's very much like a lookalike on Facebook. I mean, on Facebook, you can upload emails as well. So you can do the same thing on Snap. You can build their version of a lookalike at Snap is called a SAM. So you can build a SAM audience based on email addresses, based on your pixel. So we've done both. Obviously, the pixel might be a little bit better if you don't have tons of emails, because maybe your business is, only a year or two old. So you don't have, tens of thousands of emails to build one off of. And then, yeah, Snap will go out and try to find other people on the platform who look like your customers. And whether it's a small audience, a medium audience, a large audience, you have an audience you can go after and potentially remarket to or prospect to.
Oh, that's great. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about everyone's favorite platform as of this publication, TikTok. What are you seeing? Do you have any case studies or any examples of a client who had big success using TikTok?
Yeah, to be honest, we've actually never run any ads on TikTok.
Interesting. Okay.
We have a guide because I've researched everything I can about TikTok. We have an account and we have an agency account. We have a rep and they want us to run stuff, but it's just, like we talked earlier, some clients don't have unlimited budget. And so it's like, where's the best place? And I think TikTok is a bit more like Pinterest. It's not about that direct sale, whereas Snap is more like Facebook, where it's about direct sales. So it's like, I'd love to run an ad, but I can't guarantee we're going to get a sale from it. And the tracking is not as great on TikTok. So it's like a nice to have. Maybe we'll do it in Q4 for the holiday season because it might help with brand awareness. But right now, it doesn't make sense for clients.
I love those little distinctions. So Snap is similar to Facebook. And I think this is all great. So I want to hear a little bit more about your agency. So you guys are based in Canada. If I've done any research about you at all, you notice that you're a traveler and you've got this travel bug in you. How has your summer, like this is the COVID summer, you can't go anywhere. Are you losing your mind this Canadian summer of yours?
I wouldn't say I'm losing my mind. I mean, I was going to be in Portugal a couple of weeks ago, and so I had to cancel that. I mean, I could have went theoretically, but obviously it wouldn't be safe. I'm sad, obviously, because I love to travel, but I'm also like, my health is more important than going to see it in a new country. Yeah. So I just kind of accept it and realize that, okay, maybe not next year, because, maybe next year I might go to Toronto just to see clients, because most of our Canadian clients are in Toronto. But definitely in 2022, I'll just book a big trip somewhere and go somewhere and just like travel as much as I can. So I do miss it because I'd normally be in London 2 or 3 times a year to speak at either Brighton SEO or just see friends and clients and stuff. But I accept we can't travel because it's honestly like it's a privilege, right? I get the privilege of traveling and doing stuff. And so I save a lot of money, basically, Mark, is what I do right now, which I do like. But I am sad about it. I won't lie. First world problems.
Enjoy that. Yeah. And then I started off by saying I'm going to ask you about your agency. Are mostly you've really defined who your customer base is, right? On your website, you talk about DTC companies, technology companies, and 3 or 4 others. Why did you decide to zero in on those verticals? Why not just say we're the agency for everybody?
We used to be the agency for everybody. It was like that when we started in 2017. And I used to sell hours, and I realized hours didn't work. So we fired our clients in August 2017 and started to change our pricing model. And then in the summer of 2018, I realized, okay, I can't be everything to everyone, and certain clients we just had really bad experiences. And so I looked at what I'm into and what I'm good at and my experience, and it just made sense to niche down to e-com and D2C, and then also SaaS, and sometimes you get a technology brand. because that's my background. And I think SaaS is very similar to e-com in that you're asking someone to make a transaction. It's just that transaction is going to happen every month. And it's kind of like SaaS would be somewhere between like subscription models and e-commerce. And so if you can do e-commerce and D2C and subscription models, you can easily do, SaaS and work on SaaS brands, whether it's, B2B or B2C. So it's more of, let's niche down to what we're good at. And I think there's tons of opportunity out there in just that space. And it's easier to write content for the blog and come up with topics for speaking gigs and talk about things on podcasts when we just focus on these 3 or 4 verticals versus trying to be everything to everyone. And honestly, Mark, I don't want to work on dentist stuff and auto and all these things. We've done auto a couple of times. I'm like, never again. I don't care how much money they offer me. I'll never do auto again. I don't want to do dentist. I don't want to do this other stuff because they're boring, quite frankly.
Send them my way. I'll take all the boring auto dealers you want now.
No, I will, Mark. I will send them your way if they reach out to me. I will seriously do that. I find their websites are dated. They're not always the nicest people. They don't want to spend a lot of money. And then they expect the really average website to convert. And I'm like, this combination of stuff doesn't work out for us.
I love that idea though, of really getting down into your niche. And so tell me about firing all your clients. That must have been a fun day.
Well, I didn't do it all in one day. I did it over a course of like a month or so. I basically gave everyone the notice period in the contract and said basically like, I love you as a client, but I can't sell hours. It doesn't make sense. Like this is the model I want to do in pricing, whether it was like, I think back then it was mostly like retainer based. I think a couple was like a % to spend a retainer. And I'm like, let me know if you want to do this. If not, this is the last day we agreed on our contract anyways. And then I just can't continue. Of course, none of them agreed to it, which I figured would be the case. And I just started from scratch on that day. And I'm like, let's just start from scratch. I can't sell hours because you've got to work more hours to make more money. But if you're not making enough money per hour, you're never going to like be able to grow and hire someone else or just expand the team because there's only so many hours in the day and you don't want to be just emotionally, mentally exhausted. And I also find clients that want to pay by the hour, not every client, but a lot of clients who want to pay by the hour either are really cheap and think that we only should be, $30-$40 an hour. Or on the flip side, they think a task should only take 5 hours and it took, let's say 10. And so they focus on the fact that it took you 10 hours to do this task because they don't want to pay for 10 hours versus the fact that you got the job done and you made them $1 million, for example.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you all about these odd network, these other networks, the Pinterest, but there's such big news in Google this week that I have to get your take on this. There's an announcement about the search terms report that it would not be as robust as it once was. Can you tell me what this means to you and the ramifications for advertisers?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I've seen a lot of people talk about it in the last couple of days, and I feel lots of emotions about it in different ways. I understand why they're doing it from a business perspective. I respect capitalism like any other business owner. However, it's like we're paying you money to get access to both data and rent your platform. And you're basically saying you're taking away access that we've always had. And you're not giving us that much lead time. October is only 4 weeks away, really. Even if they go to the end of October, that's 7 weeks. I think some of our clients, it's not going to have much of an effect. They do get lots of searches that are like one click, one impression, but the volume of those one click, one impressions are so small, it's irrelevant. Most of the searches or the head tail searches, for lack of a better word, where that's most of the spend and most of the searches go to that. So it's like these 1 searches, 1 clicks, 5 searches, 1 click aren't going to really matter. I don't think it's that shocking though. I mean, Google's made a lot of changes in the last 5 years where they just take away things, from the SEO world. They took away keywords from Google Analytics. What was that, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever that was. People like flip their shit about that. But I'm like, the day that Google doesn't decide they're going to take away stuff from us is the day that we know that like everyone who runs Google has been lobotomized and taken over because their goal is to make as much money. And the only way to make more money is to basically take away our ability to control what we do and disintermediate both us as agencies, but people who run accounts because they just want to automate everything. So I think it sucks. It will affect some of our clients more than others, but I'm not shocked by it. The only thing I'm shocked about is like, what's next? What are they going to do next? What are they going to take away next? Because they're not going to stop here. They have something else they're going to do. Probably not between now and Q4. I don't think they're going to do something next 6 weeks, but they'll definitely do something in Q1 or Q2 next year.
Wow, it's a wild problem that they have. They're so big, and that if they want to grow, they need to do things that are just sort of crazy. They have to put more ads out there. They have to make them look more like organic results, and more people will click on them.
Mhm.
And now they're making it so that in a search terms report, for people watching who don't exactly know what this means, that means there's this report that will show you the actual keyword that somebody clicked on to arrive on your website. And what you find when you go through that search terms report and you audit it is very often there are keywords that you would not want to pay any money to send your. So you can very easily make those negatives and save yourself money. Now Google is, what would you say? They're still going to show like the ones that get a lot of clicks, but they're not going to show the like onesies and twosies anymore, right?
Well, they're not defined what a threshold of like insignificant
yeah, right.
clicks are.
That hasn't been defined, right?
What does it mean? Like you need one click and one impression? Is it like 100 impressions in one click? Like we had it last summer where a client sells kids' toys. And this is one of those things about Google. Google doesn't understand, like the technology doesn't understand context. So, it doesn't understand the difference between, milk chocolate and chocolate milk. We understand that. Those are very different. Google doesn't also understand when one of our clients says that the kids' toys, that's a block, and the blocks can be turned into like a motorcycle or a cop car. When we say it can be turned into a motorcycle in our ad copy or in a product description, that doesn't mean you should show us shopping ads for like a Harley Davidson or a Suzuki or stuff like that. We sell like doll toys where you can buy like a little doll and a jacket for your doll, but like Google then shows our ad for like kids coats and kids jackets and like girls jackets and boys jackets. And so like if they remove this stuff and we can't see that stuff, well, that means we're going to get shown for a lot of stuff we don't like and we can't do anything about, which means we have to be way better at thinking about what are all the things that Google could show us for that we've got to put as a negative, which can be really hard because you've got to almost be a lateral thinker versus a very like, this is black and white, and search is not black and white. There's a whole gray area that I think people don't always realize.
Oh, wonderful. Before I let you go, last question. Short form video ads. Can you give me some, this impacts a lot of these platforms that we've been talking about. Can you give us some best practices on how to do an effective short form video ad?
Yeah, for a lot of short form video, it's like you want to capture somebody's attention in the first like 2 or 3 seconds. Especially if you can do stuff on Snap and Facebook, catching someone's attention sooner is better than longer. If you're on YouTube for video, you could definitely have a longer video. People go to YouTube for like education and knowledge. So they're used to watching things that are a little bit longer than they would if they're on Snap or on Facebook or Instagram. And then from there, it's like making sure people know what your product is. It seems funny to say that, but we all see ads where like, what are they selling in this ad, whether it's a video or a picture? Is it like the jacket? Is it the necklace? Is it the earrings? So making sure it's very clear what you're selling so that people can associate that product with your logo or your name that's on the ad. And even just putting your logo, in the bottom right or the bottom left, so people like associate your name and your logo with your brand. Like it seems like little things, but people don't realize watching a video is great. But if I watch your video and I don't know, let's say I don't know Allbirds from like one of the competitors. If it's an Allbirds ad, I don't have the Allbirds logo there. Well, that's a problem because I might think it's, the Amazon knockoff that they launch or one of the other competitors in the space. And so making sure for newer D2C brands and newer brands, you really define who your product is and who your brand is by putting your logo in your ad so people know that it's your product versus one of your competitors. Because I can bet you most people don't know the difference between like an Allbirds and one of their competitors.
No, I hear you. Well, Duane, I think you guys are very interesting. Everything you guys are doing, it makes me rethink a lot of paid media programs and where we could best be stewards of our clients' money. And so I encourage you to continue with what you're doing. I look forward to hopefully seeing you at a conference in maybe next year. We'll see. And meeting you in person. But thank you so much for coming on Suds Search. This has been really fun.
Cool. Thanks for having me, Mark. I enjoyed it. And I'm sure we'll see each other at some point. I'll definitely be at Chicago at some point because I love Chicago as a city. It's my favorite city in America. We just need to be able to like both like reopen the border between our two countries, but also travel safely on a plane. I
know. Well, look me up. Try to get, you might want to wait until the spring or something like that. This is like, I love Chicago. It's my hometown. But in February, I'd almost rather be anywhere else. It's so cold and miserable. And so, hopefully wait till the spring and then we'll get some deep dish pizza or something.
I love that. Sounds like a plan.
All right, Duane. Thanks again. We'll see you guys next time on Suds Search.